Welcome to Modern Dev episode 5, and today I will show you how you can use the Python unit test module, which is part of the standard installation, to write unit tests in order to test your Python code. So I prepared something here in order to save time. So as a simple example, we want to write a unit test for a simple calculator or adder. So we have a class here with the name adder, and it has exactly one method called add, and add just adds two numbers and returns the result. So our test for this now looks like this. So because we use the unit test module, which is part of the standard installation, we import unit test. And we have to import the file that contains the code that we want to test. In order to do that, we have to import adder, because that's the file name where our adder class is located in. So now comes some generic stuff. So in order to write a unit test, you have to declare a new class. And if you test a class, I would always recommend just use the class name of the class that you want to test and prepend the name test. So because our class that we want to test, the name is adder, means our test will be adder test. The code that you want to test is also called subject under test, or SUT. So the adder class is our subject under test. So then you have to extend from unit test test cases. That's necessary so that the test runner can run your tests. And then you basically define methods where you test your code. And so by convention, so if you want to test a class, then one test case, so one method, is a so-called test case. And so what you do is, in one test case, you always test one method of your class. So as an example, if you're going to test a class that has 3 methods, and you want to write at least one test for each method, that means you have 3 test cases, one for each method. Optimally, you will not only have one test for a method, but more than that, maybe at least a good case test and a bad case test. Okay, and so what all the tests have in common, doesn't matter what framework or language you use, you have 3 parts of a test case, and that's given, when, then. And usually I'm not a big fan of comments, but for these things I find it very helpful. So the given part basically contains the preconditions that you need in order to run your test. So in this case, we need an object of our adder class. That's our given part. Then the when part executes your subject under test. So in the when part, you call the method or the function that you want to test. So because we want to test the add function, we call add on our instance variable, and we invoke it with the parameters 3 and 5. And we save the whole thing in a variable called result. That's also something I would recommend as a generic name that helps you a lot. You know, if you write a lot of tests, it helps a lot if you have a little bit of a structure. That helps a lot in order to understand your tests faster. And then you have the then part, and in the then part you basically write down your so-called assertions, where you specify what do you expect. So in this case, we expect the result to be 8. I wrote down 9 here, so a third equals, so the first parameter is basically your result, what came out of your function invocation, and the second parameter is what you expect. So let's run this. And you run tests by, so I'm on the console here, so you specify your Python executable, then -m, which stands for module. So now you say which module you want to invoke, which in this case we want to invoke the unit test module. And now there's several ways to start tests. So for this example, the easiest way is just to specify the name of the test, and the whole test is in the file adder test. So we just say adder_test. And now we have a little bit of output. You see here we started the test. Okay, there's a deprecation warning because I used a deprecated method, but that's a different thing. So now we see failed, assertion error, 8 does not equal 9. Because our implementation returns 8, we expect 9, and now the test fails. This is just for demonstration purposes. And it's also a very good practice, like never trust a test that you haven't seen failing. So it's always good to start with a failing test and then make it green in terms of like make it not fail. So let's change that to 8, run the test again, and we see ran one test in basically 0 seconds and result okay. Because that's what we want to have. If you add 3 and 5, we expect the result to be 8. So that's basic testing, or the basic concepts of testing, shown here with the Python unit test module. Also something I forgot, the methods, so your test cases, they have to start with the name test. That has to be in order that the unit test module works. So I recommend that's something from behavior-driven testing, to always start a test case name with the name should, because it makes it much more self-explaining, and you also have to think more about actually what you want to test here. It helps a lot for documentation purposes. So because you have to start it with test, so I would recommend always starting it with test underscore and then basically your name. So that would be like a valid test case name, should add 2 numbers. So that's very self-explaining in order for people to understand what's going on here. And also, like, remember, testing is also software engineering, so all the rules that apply to the other code also apply to testing code. So, don't repeat yourself, keep it clean, and so on and so forth. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. And yeah, subscribe to the channel. Leave me a comment if you have questions or if you want to see something specific next time. And yeah, thank you very much. See you next time.